By the end of this video, your drone flights will be much safer, and your chances of having a drone accident will be much less likely. Let's jump right in. Hey everyone, I hope you're keeping really well. Now, when it comes to drone crashes, and primarily crashes that are bad enough to damage your drone to the point of it needing repaired or replaced, the number one mistake I see causing these time and time again, especially as a beginner, is a lack of situational awareness. By having a better situational awareness of everything that's going on when flying a drone, you will massively increase the safety of your flight. So today, I would love to share with you 15 tips and tricks that you can follow on your next flight to help improve your situational awareness and massively reduce the risk of you crashing and damaging your drone. Now, the first tip that will help you have a safer drone flight is to know your location. When flying a drone at a location, especially a new location, you want to know your environment so that you can anticipate any potential hazards or dangers to your drone flight, such as obstacles for your drone to avoid, or areas where you may have lower quality signal or signal cutouts between the controller and the drone due to things like trees. The last thing you want to do is go to a location that you've never been to before and just take the drone off and start flying. Instead, you want to get to know the location you're about to fly in. Now, the way I like to do this is before I even take the drone off, I like to explore the area on foot. I recommend walking around and looking out for and making a mental note of things like trees, in particular tall trees, and this is because although the drone's obstacle avoidance is very good, it can struggle with things like branches, so you want to avoid flying very close to trees. You also want to look out for cables such as power lines or telephone cables, and again this is because the obstacle avoiding systems on your drone struggles to see these. Power lines and cables are also very hard to see on the controller screen when flying. Sometimes they almost appear invisible, so it's useful to know where they are so that you don't accidentally fly into them when flying the drone around. You also want to make note of where the street lights are, as these can also be a hazard. Any buildings which might come in between you and the drone, causing the signal to cut out. Waterfalls, as again you want to avoid flying close to these so that the water doesn't get splashed in the drone. And if you're planning to do a flight lower to the ground, then I would also look out for things like fences or fence wire, as again these wires can be quite thin and hard to see. Areas of water, as you want to be careful when flying over the water, as it can be harder to visually gauge the height you're flying above it using just the controller screen. And also very important if flying over water or the sea is areas in which waves are crashing. This has caught me out before. You want to make note of anywhere where the waves are crashing against rocks, for example, because if you fly too low or too close to these, there is a risk that the wave might crash and splash water up over your drone. Now, something else that I recommend doing as you scout around your location is to make a mental note of a few potential emergency landing sites. Having these planned beforehand means if something unforeseen happens to your drone while you're flying it, such as an extremely low battery and a forced landing, you know a few good areas nearby where you can land your drone safely. You want these to be nice clear areas, free of any obstacles on the ground such as tall grass, and above the location such as overhanging trees, and by knowing a few of these locations, it will massively reduce the stress if something unforeseen happens to your drone and you need to do an emergency landing. Once we have done that, we are ready to put the drone in the air, and I have a top tip to make this safer, and that is to never take the drone off with it facing you. Now this sounds simple, but the reason I recommend this is because once the drone is in the air facing you, all the controls will appear reversed from your point of view. The drone's left is your right, for example. Beginner pilots and even seasoned pros can get caught out expecting the drone to mirror their stick movement when it's facing them, but that's not the case. And so you could move the joystick one way expecting the drone to follow, but instead it will fly the opposite direction and could fly into obstacles or even worse, other people. So always remember to have the drone camera facing away from you when taking it off, and that way the drone movement will match the movement of the sticks. Now just quickly, before moving on to the next tip, if you are getting value from this video, please let me know by giving me the thumbs up and clicking that like button down below. And if you love all things drones, but also action cameras, gimbals and more, and want to learn about the best settings to get up and running quickly, along with tips and tricks to help you get more cinematic videos and better looking images with your gear, then please consider clicking that subscribe button down below. And when you're down there, be sure to check the notification bell so that you will be alerted when my new videos are released. It would be greatly appreciated. Now, alongside situational awareness, it's also very important to know the limits of obstacle avoidance. Now, obstacle avoidance works by using the sensors which are dotted around your drone to detect any obstacles, and it will either brake or bypass them depending on your settings. But the first thing you should know is what directions your drone can actually sense obstacles. So drones like the DJI Mini 4 Pro and Air 3 have what's called omnidirectional obstacle avoidance, so they can sense in all directions. But drones like the Mini 3 Pro have tri-directional obstacle avoidance, so they can only sense forwards, backwards and downwards, not to the side or above the drone. So you can see how this might cause issues. You might think that your drone can actually sense in a direction it can't, and so when you fly towards an obstacle in that direction expecting it to stop and brake, it might actually continue on into that obstacle and crash. So always know which directions your drone can actually sense obstacles. Secondly, although obstacle avoidance is very good, it does struggle with certain things. Anything small and thin, such as power lines or tree branches, can go undetected. So a rule of thumb I like to use is, if I struggle to see the obstacles on my controller screen, then I will expect my drone to also struggle to see them obstacles. Next, you want to be aware of the drone's sensing and stopping distance. If you're flying fast, the drone might not sense the obstacle until it's too late and within its stopping distance, and so even though the drone is trying to slow down, it won't be able to do it fast enough. And the last thing you want to remember is that if you flip your drone into sport mode, it turns off obstacle avoidance. It doesn't matter if you have it set to brake or bypass in the settings. When you flip into sport mode, all obstacle avoidance is turned off, and that's very important to remember. Now, the number one type of crash I see time and time again is where somebody is flying into an unsighted obstacle, such as sideways into branches or upwards into a power line. If you're doing a move in a direction that the drone's camera can't see, such as sideways, downwards, upwards or backwards, then you can't rely on the camera view to detect obstacles. You have to look at the drone in the air, visualize the path it's about to make, and make sure it's free of any obstacles. You can also rotate the drone quickly to look in the direction you're going to fly before doing it, to also make sure it's free of any obstacles. Now you might say, won't the drone's obstacle avoidance protect me in these situations? But as we discussed in a previous point, obstacle avoidance does not detect 100% of all the obstacles all of the time. Really, you want to think of obstacle avoidance as a fail-safe to protect you in them rare moments where you slip up and get caught out. You don't want to use it as the first step in protecting you from obstacles. I like to think of it this way. A lot of cars these days have automatic braking systems. And the way these work is, if you're driving along and there's a car in front and you have a lapse of judgment or you aren't concentrating and the car thinks you're on a path to collide with that car in front, it will automatically apply the brakes. But you wouldn't use this system to stop the car every single time. It's there as a last step protection measure. And this is really how you should view the obstacle avoidance on your drone. It's there to protect you when you get caught out, have a lapse of judgment, but you don't want to use it every single time as a way of stopping your drone in front of an obstacle. Now, if you are flying your drone in a direction that the main camera can't see, there's actually a feature that can help you do this safer called Vision Assist. Now, this is available on the Mini 4 Pro, Air 3 and Mavic 3 series drones, and what it allows you to do is if you swipe sideways on the mini map on the bottom left of the controller, you will now be able to see a video feed from the obstacle avoiding sensors off your drone. And you can change this view to look forwards, right, backwards or left, and this can allow you to view the direction you're flying your drone independently of the main camera view. Now, initially, Vision Assist is very small because it's only the size of the minimap on the bottom left of the controller, but you can actually press this button here to expand it to be full screen. And this will allow you to more easily see and identify any obstacles which might be in the path your drone is flying. I always recommend using Vision Assist if it's a capability your drone has to do this safer. Now, something that's worth remembering when flying your drone is that you can actually move around yourself to help get better line of sight on the drone. You might be so focused on flying or trying to get the best shot that your view of your drone starts to become less than ideal. Maybe in its new location in the sky, you can see the drone itself clearly, but not any of its surroundings. In these situations, it pays to remember that you don't need to stand static in one place. You can actually move around with the controller to get a better line of sight on your drone and be able to see its surroundings better to continue to fly safely. Also, something I recommend doing if you're in a location capturing multiple points of interest, where some are close to where you're standing, but some are further away from where you're standing, is that after capturing the close point of interests, instead of flying the drone much further away from you to them points of interests and it becoming very small in the sky and hard to see, I recommend landing the drone, walking closer to the other subjects, and then taking it off and capturing them. That way you will be closer to the drone and can keep a better eye on it. Now, if you've been caught out before flying your drone, having lots of fun, capturing lots of great clips, finding lots of good subjects to capture, but then all of a sudden you look down and realize you've flown your drone very far away, then you might benefit from setting the flight protection settings. To do this, you want to go to the settings menu, and then under the safety subheading, if you scroll down, you will see a section called flight protection. Now in here, you can set the max distance. By default, this will be set to no limit, but you can reduce this to something like 200 meters. And now if you try to fly your drone more than 200 meters away from you, it will actually stop itself from doing so. It will basically put a ring fence 200 meters all around you that you won't be able to fly the drone further than. And this can prevent those situations where you're flying around and you don't realize that you've flown the drone really far away. Also, if you have a drone such as the Mini 4 Pro or Mini 3 Pro, which can capture vertical video by rotating the camera, you want to be very, very careful when using that mode. And the reason for this is that when you use vertical mode, the camera view on the screen becomes very, very small. And this can make it much harder to see any obstacles such as power lines. It can also make it harder to gauge the distance between the drone and obstacles using just the screen. So something I like to do, and I recommend doing to be able to do this safer, is that if you want to do a drone move around a subject, I actually practice this first in landscape mode. And this gives me the larger camera preview on the screen so that I can be aware of any obstacles. And then once I am happy, I will switch into vertical mode and do the move for real while capturing the video. And this will just make the process much, much safer. Now, the next thing you want to do is to make sure that you point the antennas towards the drone. Sometimes we forget to do this. We just flick the antennas out, but we don't actually make sure that they're pointing towards the drone. But this is very important to do, as by having the antennas pointing towards the drone, it will give you the best connection and avoid signal dropouts. Something that's also very important to be aware of if you do have fold out antennas is that you don't cross them, as this will diminish the signal quality. Now, you might wonder, if you don't have a controller such as the DJI RC2 with fold out antennas, what part should you actually point towards the drone? Well, if you have the DJI RC controller, it's the top of the controller itself. You will see these little antenna signals on the top of the controller, and this is what you want to point towards your drone. If you have one of the controllers that you attach your phone to, such as the DJI RC-M1 or DJI RC-M2, the antennas are actually built into the top of the phone cage. So that's the part you want to point towards the drone. Now, here's a top tip that not a lot of people know, and that is that DJI has actually built a way into the controller that you can see when you have the best signal strength between the controller and the drone. Now, to do this, you want to swipe sideways on the minimap again, and you want to do this until you get across to the attitude compass view. Now, on this compass, you will see three icons. you will see a small blue circle, and that indicates where the controller is. You will see a small triangle, and that indicates where the drone is, and you will also see a home point icon, and that signifies where the drone will return home to in the event of a low battery or loss of signal. But here's the top tip. If you start to turn with the controller to face the drone, whenever the signal strength is the highest quality between the controller and drone, or when you're facing the drone directly, the blue icon signifying where your controller is will actually change to green. So when this little icon is green, you will know that you have the best possible connection between the controller and drone. Now, something that's very, very important to be aware of for a safe flight, especially if you have a smaller, lighter drone, such as the Mini series drones, is the wind. So you want to know the wind speed and direction of a location you plan to fly at the time you plan to fly there, and you want to make sure that it doesn't exceed the max wind resistance of your drone. As mentioned, smaller drones like the Mini series drones can really get blown around quite a lot when the wind speed is very high. And I've personally flown in situations where the wind speed is so high that it actually starts to blow the drone away from me, and the motors aren't powerful enough to actually fly the drone back to me. So that's a scary situation you don't want to be in. Another situation I recommend avoiding if it is a windier day is to try not to fly your drone too far away in a tailwind. You might be totally unaware of the wind direction, but by flying the drone away in a tailwind, the wind will actually be assisting the drone. So you might actually think this drone's having no problem at all with this wind speed. But the problem is, once you have the drone quite far away, if you turn to bring it back to you in a headwind, now the wind is actually blowing against the drone, making it harder to fly it back to you. And in some situations, this might make it much slower to fly the drone back to you, which is a concern if you already have a low battery, or as mentioned, it might actually make it impossible for the drone to fly back to you. And in those situations, this is where an earlier point of planning them emergency landing sites at a location comes in handy, because it means you can actually land the drone at one of them closer emergency landing points and then walk to it and pick it up. Now, one of the best safety features on a drone is the return to home functionality, so that if there is a signal dropout between the controller and the drone, or the drone gets a low battery, it will automatically be able to fly back to where it took off from. But something that a lot of people forget to set, especially as a beginner, is the return to home height. Now, this is a critical setting, because once return to home engages, the drone will rise up to a set altitude, fly back to above its home point, and then land. But if you have this height set lower than any of the obstacles in the area, such as tall trees or buildings, then the drone may actually collide into them obstacles as it flies back to you. So before you even take the drone off, you want to look around, look for the highest obstacles in your area, and then you want to go to the settings menu, and under the safety tab, scroll down, and then you will see an option called Auto Return to Home Altitude. And this setting is that height that the drone will automatically rise up to when return to home engages. So you want to set this to be higher than the estimated height of any of them tall obstacles in your location, so that you know the drone will safely rise up above them when it flies back to you. But if you want to mitigate all risk, then you really want to try to not put your drone into them situations where return to home will engage. So you want to make sure that you don't fly in situations where you might get a signal dropout, and you also want to make sure that you don't fly the drone too far away with a very low battery. You want to make sure that you bring the drone back and change the battery before it becomes critically low. As remember, once the battery gets critically low on your drone, it will automatically start to do a forced landing, which means the drone will start descending to land and you won't be able to stop it. Now, something else I recommend doing is mastering the flight app. So you want to learn where all the buttons and functions are that you use often. So how to change between different modes, or how to change the video and photo settings. You also want to learn what all the icons and notifications mean, such as the battery percentage, the signal strength, and how many satellites the drone is connected to. And by learning where all these icons and functions are in the controller screen, it means you won't spend as much time looking down at the controller and will be able to spend more time looking up at the drone itself in the air and keeping a better eye on it. This also has the secondary bonus of meaning you will be able to spend more time flying your drone and capturing shots rather than spending 10 minutes going through different menus trying to find a particular function. Lastly, you want to know the intelligent flight mode's limitations. Intelligent flight modes are great, such as quick shots, master shots, and tracking. But again, they aren't foolproof. If you are doing a quick shot, you want to know the path the drone is about to take to do that quick shot, because you might do something like an orbit and the drone might actually fly into branches as it's doing that automatic maneuver. Now, if you're using tracking, there are a few hazards you want to be aware of. Firstly, just know that the tracking is great, but it will struggle if it's trying to follow a subject through really complex areas. So if you're tracking a subject through a forest, for example, you must be very, very careful. As again, although that tracking is very, very good, all it takes is one stray branch to catch the drone out. You also want to try to make sure that the path the subject is following while the drone is tracking them is as clear as possible. And this is because if it's flying along next to a subject quite fast, it might not detect an obstacle that pops up until it's too late, and again, because of that stopping distance, not be able to slow itself down in time. So be very, very careful of any obstacles in the area when you're tracking a subject. So there you have it. 15 tips and tricks that should help make your next drone flight safer and reduce the risk of you crashing and damaging your drone. If you have any tips and tricks that you use to fly safer, then why not comment them down below to help me out and to help other drone pilots out. Now before you go, if you liked this video and learned something new, please let me know by giving me the thumbs up and clicking that like button down below. And if you love all things drones, but also action cameras, gimbals and more, and want to know how to get better images and more cinematic videos with your gear, then I recommend you check out my channel where I have a ton of other content to help you level up your game. If you don't want to miss any of my upcoming videos, then please remember to click that subscribe button down below. And when you're down there, be sure to check the notification bell so that you will be alerted when my new videos are released. It would be greatly appreciated. And if you want to stick around and watch a few more now, here's a few I personally recommend. I'll not keep you back any further. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you over there.